You mentioned how, as a filmmaker, just because you're a filmmaker that's a Christian, it doesn't mean you need to. Um, I don't know how to phrase this. Make like blatantly Christian art. You know, you don't need to be painting the Last Supper to count as a Christian artist. Uh, and I have a quote from Martin Luther. Luther said, "The Christian shoemaker does his duty not by putting little crosses on the shoes, but by making good shoes, because God is interested in good craftsmanship." Do you feel like that kind of resonates with what you were saying before?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's the same thing where it's like Paul was a tent maker, right? He was really good tent maker, but he was also a minister, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think God just calls us to do good work, and then through that work, it's like, can you be a light? I think the thing that helped me change my perspective, at least in the industry, because we went to Biola, and I think the question that a lot of the students had was like, how do I integrate Christianity into what I'm doing? I think it was when I shifted my perspective towards, okay, I was placed in this industry right now, and I could be placed in a different industry in a different part of my life. But if God
Mm-hmm.
places me here, how can I impact the people around me while I'm doing my craft? And then when it comes to the art itself, I think I've kind of taken an approach where it's like, I don't need to go make the Last Supper or Jesus dying on a cross or the next great Chosen. I like Chosen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it goes back to what I was saying about like what's true in our world, right? Like if you honor good and evil is evil and good is good, like that's why I love Lord of the Rings so much, is because it even portrays evil as evil and good as good. And like sure, Tolkien had a lot of inspiration from the Bible as he's writing this stuff, but he wasn't blatantly saying like Jesus or saying like, this is from the Bible. And yet we can all resonate on a level where it's like we understand that sacrificing for the person to you or sacrificing for your friend is a good thing to do. And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't necessarily have to just be blatantly from that's coming from the Bible and coming from what's true in our world, anyways. And it's like Jesus was a storyteller. He told parables so that we could relate to our surroundings and our world. And I think that's more of the approach I started taking was, okay, if I'm going to write a fantasy, how can I still relate to our world about what's good? And through fantasy as a tool, how can I actually break down those barriers that, like in our world, if I came up to you and said, hey, do you want to talk about like God and religion? People might be like, I don't really want to talk about that. Versus if I could put Jesus's morals from the Sermon on the Mount into a really epic fantasy world, now I can talk about that without the awkwardness of being like, you want to talk about religion? I can be like, You see that scene? That scene was so cool. And it's a commentary on XYZ, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the way I started to approach stuff. So I agree with that quote where I think
Yeah.
that there's different ways to do it. But also making a blatant Jesus movie or The Chosen is also a great way to do it. So